Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Business Advisory Services Implementation Training, Getting Ready. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS Biz Tools, and I'm joined today by Andrew Geddes, well-known Australian accounting industry consultant. How are you today, Andrew?
Very well, thanks, Peter.
That's good. So we'll be talking about the issues relative to accountants, bookkeepers, and business advisors supplying business advisory services to your clients. So we'll just go back and formally get underway. And so welcome to Getting Ready for Business Advisory Services. The CommBank produced their Accounting Market Pulse report in September 2021. This was the 6th year in a row that the CommBank has produced this report for the Australian accounting industry. And one of the big observations that they have made this year is that only 5% of firms will not, I repeat, will not be diversifying services. And I'm going to ask Andrew to comment about that in a moment. Business advisory services was clearly identified as the growth service line for the next 12 to 18 months in the survey of accountants all over Australia that the CommBank's consultants undertook for them. In fact, they indicated that 81% of the firms that they identified as being leading firms, these were the firms that answered very positively their 5 key questions in the survey. 81% of those leading firms had identified that the top product that they were pursuing in the next 12 to 18 months was business advisory services. And 67% of the firms that the CommBank identified as being lagging firms were also pursuing business advisory services. And both of these figures were the highest rating in that group of replies. So it's business advisory services. So my question today is, why is the delivery of business advisory services so important for accountants in 2021-22? What is creating the interest? And to give his thoughts on this, his expert overview, I'd like to now introduce you to a gentleman who is well known to many accountants around Australia, Andrew Geddes, the joint founder of the Financial Management Research Centre, which originally operated at the University of New England in Armidale, New South Wales. Andrew obviously has been an accountancy industry mentor and coach and is well known to many of you. But one of Andrew's great successes, I think, was to chair Green Cross, a company that Andrew originally advised about 30 years ago and grew from a one-man and probably one nurse veterinary clinic in Townsville to become a top 200 ASX company. This is really business advisory services in operation. As I see it, an idea became a huge corporation. And Andrew, I'm sure, will comment on some of the things he learned from that journey with Green Cross in his comments today. So Andrew, I would ask you to comment, why should accountants proactively deliver business advisory services to their SME clients?
Well, Peter, I think it's very simple. If your clients go broke, all of a sudden you've lost the compliance work and your fees drop.
That's right. Yeah.
You've got, to me, it's common sense, particularly in COVID times where demand is up and down, and with lockdowns and other associated changes in consumer behaviour. It's been a very uncertain time. There's been a lot of variation in supply and demand in the market. So clients need help. That's what we're here to talk about today.
That's right. Yeah. And hopefully accountants are going to be able to grasp this opportunity that's emerged at last, hasn't it? When I first met you back in the early 80s, we
40 years
didn't
ago.
call it. I didn't say the 40 years. I just sort of let them do their own sums. But they're
Yes.
accountants. They've already worked it out. But
Yes.
when you think about it, we didn't really use the terminology business advisory services back in those days, or I didn't really hear it. But that's what it was all about, wasn't it? FMRC, that
Yes.
vision you had then 40 years ago. You must feel
Yes.
very happy about this. It's finally coming to some sort of fruition.
Yes, well, we ran industry-specific management workshops. We did consulting with various sectors, and we worked with accountants and helped their clients. We used to call it management services back then. It was
That's
about
right, yeah.
really applied management accounting and trying to help small business clients with cash flow and basically better management. And of course, as they grow and became more sophisticated, they had greater needs for help with both compliance and superannuation, investments, risk management, and then succession planning, sale of businesses, valuation of businesses. So the list goes on. In the last 20 years, there's been a lot of firms that have added a technology advisory capability to their firms to help their small business clients. So I guess in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of literature and promotion within the accounting profession suggesting that practitioners should look to develop the capability of business advisory services. A number of them have already done that, of course, and others are looking at what it means and how they might help their clients.
Yes, Andrew, and I think most of the people who are watching this broadcast today, either live or on Facebook Live, or will be watching it at a time that suits them over the next few days, are people who have heard about business advisory services and are contemplating whether their firm should get involved. And perhaps some of them a bit further down the track, they're now trying to determine who they should join up with, ESS Biz Tools or someone else, to give them the material to be able to communicate with clients without reinventing the wheel, spending hundreds of hours
Yes,
writing the material.
Absolutely. So do you want to bring up my slides now, Peter?
Yeah, if you can bring them up, thanks.
Just share the screen.
Yes, you've shared the screen. Can you just go to slideshow? That's good. And you're on.
Excellent. Okay, so for the last 40 years, I've worked with accounting firms, helping them develop business advisory services and helping them with their clients in a number of cases as well. I currently have 8 clients myself only, and I sit on their advisory boards. I'm the chairman, external independent chairman of those companies. They are engineers, surveyors, accounting firms, a couple of high-tech startups. So there's a variety of different enterprises. So I am a business advisor, and that's what I do to earn my living. I'm also 70 years old, and I don't want to retire. My clients don't want me to retire. Life's good. I enjoy this work. It's been made a lot easier with the development of teleconferencing technologies. So I can visit my clients quarterly and talk to my managing directors weekly, monthly, depending on the need. So that's my background and my experience. So in this session today, Peter asked me to share my experiences and lessons with you. So the content today is, I guess my question is, so you want to do business advisory work? Let's start with your clients. What do they need and what do they want? Quite often, these are different. A lot of clients don't know what they need, and sometimes what they want is not really what they need to improve their business. So one of the things we're going to look at today is a needs review process that is included in ESS Biz Tools. I table the questionnaire, sit down with the client, we walk through it, and we identify as a starting point what do they think they want, and is it backed up by what our assessment of what they need is. We'll then look at the communication process, because that's what to get a client to agree to you to help them, they've got to feel that, yes, there's a need, and yes, you can deliver a certain service that will create outcomes that are of value to them. The other question is, have you got the time to do it? What's your compliance load like? What's your compliance team structure like? Are you able to free up time to do this type of work? Because as it grows, it is very time consuming, and hence you have to be willing to let go of some of your former activities, delegate to your team, and empower them and engage them so they can run that side of it. So we'll look at all of those issues as we go. If you do have questions, please write them up, and we'll deal with them at the end. So a starting point for us is to do the client needs review. Sit down. I basically ring a client up and say, look, can I have an hour? I'd like to put a questionnaire in front of you. I want to walk you through it. Let's do it away from your business so they're not distracted. Before you go, you should, if you've never done this before, select a client that you have a great rapport with, who you think is receptive to you getting more involved, who you get along well with, where there is a degree of trust, and undertake a financial analysis before you go. Do a Sherlock Holmes, a financial Sherlock Holmes on them. Look at the gross profit and net profit margins and how they've changed over time. Look at their levels of debtors, stocks, and that could be raw materials, work in progress, finished goods. Do they use budgets? Do they monitor budget versus actuals and other KPIs on a monthly, daily basis? So before you go and visit a client initially, review their financial results, take a needs questionnaire with you and table it, and ask questions, listen to their response and take notes. The communication process is really about asking, listening, taking notes, and then reviewing that with the client and identifying one or two areas that you might be able to help them improve. So you could add a benchmark comparison. www.benchmarking.com.au is some young lads have taken over the benchmarking process we developed back in the 80s. And
that's right, yeah.
You can go online and put your client's data in. Look, over the 40 years I've been doing this, whenever I've said to a client, let's look at how you compare to the top profit earners in your industry sector, they've gone, oh, yes, let's look at that. They're very interested in that. So it's a great way to get them to start to think about where they're different and why and how we might improve.
And Andrew, it can show up some real anomalies, can't it, that's happening in a client's business?
Well, yes, particularly if you do a bit of a trend analysis and look at what's happened over the last, say, 2 to 3 years, or even looking at what's happened in the month by month, particularly in this COVID time with the variability in supply and demand out there. Once you've identified some areas that you think you could help your client, you really need to be able to table, here's what we could do to assist you. So having some pre-prepared service packages documented, for example, an external chief financial officer, what we can help you do is prepare a sales, profit and cash flow budget. And then we can, through use of, again, you're online with their accounting, be it through Xero or MYOB or whoever, whatever system they might use, can we break your budget back into weekly, monthly targets, and can we start monitoring that? It could be just revenue targets, it could be levels of debtors and stock levels that relates back to cash flow. So I can monitor your actuals once we've set a budget, and we can have a meeting once a month, once a week, and review actuals. Start simply and have a modest fee. You might say, let's do this for 3 months. I'll charge you $1,000 to set it all up and $500 a month to monitor it. You might find at the end of 3 months, the client will say, if you've added value, well, what else can you do? Well, we could set up a formal advisory board where we could review your business plan and your strategies. We could then look at who's responsible for improving the business, establish some project groups, involve some of their senior leadership team, and run formal meetings where your role could be the facilitator of those meetings, but you could also be the minute secretary who documents the actions that are agreed upon. Then at the next meeting, you can table the actions and ask, have they been implemented? And as they're done, change that list from black to red. Don't delete them. Every time you meet, you can look at what have we achieved. It becomes quite motivating for the client. So you need to think about, what am I actually going to do to help the client? What role will I play? How much time will it take? What is the investment I'm going to ask the client to make? And have that prepared beforehand, and just think through how you might gain agreement with them for the engagement. Now, the other issue is, have you got time to do this? It's interesting. We used to talk about 40 years ago, finders, minders, and grinders. Now, I think the term grinder is quite insulting to those who are specialized compliance production people. So I would rather call them producers, because I haven't met one who delights in being described as a grinder.
No.
So you might play the role of a client service manager, where you visit a client, you put a needs questionnaire on the table, you engage in a conversation, you ask questions, take notes, and identify some things you might help them with. Back at your practice, do you have someone who can be the production manager and be the minder and a teacher of your accountants and bookkeepers, and make sure that the things that you need to get done, quarterly BASs, GST returns, tax returns, etc., is under control? And are you prepared to allow your team to take responsibility for managing this side of the business? Quite often, this is enhancing their role. It's a career development move, and it's a way of attracting and retaining the better team members that you have. But you've got to be willing to let go and accept that if mistakes are made, we ask, what went wrong? Why? How do we avoid it next time? And make sure the lessons are driven into your processes or skills. If you grab work and say, give it back to me, I can't trust you people, you'll just create an atmosphere that's not based on trust. So you've got to be willing to take some risks in engaging your people, delegating to them, so that you've got some time to do business advisory work. And my question is, if you're going to play a role of an external CFO and help set budgets and monitor them regularly, how many clients can you do this for in a high quality way? It's not going to be 100, let me assure you. So hence my comment about selecting clients who need the help. I've found that I've worked with firms, accounting firms, and their clients for a year, 2 years, sometimes 5 years, and then handed it back and gone, you can do this yourself now. So you teach, you help them develop processes, you help them with skills and confidence, you help them delegate to people within their own business, and then, of course, slowly but surely, you work your way out of a job. So a good and easy starting point is looking at cash flow, particularly in the COVID time. So we've talked about that. Then you can, some of the other tools, as you do cash flow work, it's often in small business a function of managing stock levels, be it raw materials, work in progress, finished goods, or managing debtors. Now, in the ESS Biz Tools material, there are handouts, so you can talk to a client about it. You can send material to them, suggest they read it, and maybe, is it the small business client that should take over the management of debtors, or should they ask one of their team members to do it and delegate the responsibility and train them? Well, you can help do that by giving them the ESS Biz Tools printouts and using that to train this person for your client. Once you've done that, some of the other tools that my accounting firms are using, Bstar's developed an online risk diagnosis questionnaire. The client fills it in, takes about 20 minutes, and they then get a SWOT analysis on the business, but it identifies areas that could be improved, and you can help establish project groups. After that, you could use some of the scaling up methodologies that are included in ESS Biz Tools. We'll have a look at that in a moment and hand out some of that material. And after you've been working with the client for a year or so, you might be able to use the Bstar risk diagnosis. It gives you a multiplier. When you apply it to maintainable profit, you get a business value. And hence you can start talking about succession planning. When might you retire? Will you sell the business? What sort of money are you looking for? Does maintainable profit and our current risk assessment and multiplier justify that expectation of a sale price? So as you do business advisory services with receptive clients, you can grow and develop with them, deepen your relationship as you build trust in it, and increase your fee. I'll often start and say, we'll run for 3 months. I'll charge you $1,000 a month for preparation and a 1 or 2 hour review of results. And after 3 months, we'll review it. It then might be, what else can you do? Well, we could form a full advisory board. We can create a senior leadership team. We can involve them, and I'll help facilitate a strategic planning meeting. And that will be $7,500 a quarter. So after a period of building trust, you can deepen your relationship and charge further fees. So start easy, win confidence, deliver results, help the client get value from the outcomes you create, and then review your role, deepen the relationship, the activities you perform, and price it up. So Peter, in a number of your ESS Biz Tools programs, you've run webinars with Paul Barnaby using Plan Guru, which is a cash flow management and profit budgeting tool. So there's one. Firms are using other tools, Fathom, Cash Flow Story. There's lots of them. But again, particularly in the last 18 months, we've been really focusing on cash flow due to the influence of COVID. So that's an area that you could start with and create the initial relationships with your client in terms of a business advisory role.
Yes, Andrew, we, with Paul Barnaby and Plan Guru, we are developing a predictive accounting product package, and we're launching that in a webinar this Friday, actually at 12 noon, AEST. Good. With Paul Barnaby and myself. Yep. And if anyone's interested in attending that webinar, please go to the ESS Biz Tools website, www.essbiztools.com.au, and you can register. And Barnaby is a chartered accountant, as you know, Andrew, and yep. He's passionate on predictive accounting. He sees this as a legitimate role for accountants.
Looking at the future and creating budgets and looking at strategies and getting smarter in how we run the business. The issue related to this is, if you want to do that sort of work, you've got to go back to school and do some learning. Here am I at 70, I'm still attending webinars, going to conferences, reading books and sharing that with my clients, and often inviting them, we go together. So you've got to have a passion for learning. The other thing related to that, Peter, is when you visit a client, I started my career and I had no idea about some of these industry sectors. I did a lot of work with the hardware building supply industry and helped the Bunning brothers develop their initial moving out of forestry and sawmilling into retail hardware. And in the end, we sold the whole show to a large corporate who created the modern Bunnings, and quite a few mitre 10 operations were sold into it and gave succession plans to those businesses. Now, all I did was go to some of the hardware building supply operations and spend a day there, asking them to show me everything they did and how they did it. I spent time in forests, felling trees, snigging and hauling them out of there. I spent time in sawmill operations and kiln drying, etc. Within a few visits, I became knowledgeable and visited others and went, oh, that's interesting. Have you thought of this that I saw down there the other day? And you become an information broker, and people go, well, isn't that valuable? So again, you can't sit at your desk. You've got to go and visit your clients. So coming back to this, some of the tools that we're using, we talked about doing a financial review of your client before you go and do a needs review, focusing on cash flow. And then once you've done that, establishing some project groups and maybe suggesting a planning meeting with the senior team members in that business. Some of my firms, as I said, are now doing a Bstar risk assessment. They're doing it annually and getting a multiplier and creating a value on the business and reporting it annually in a formal strategic meeting each year and charging fees for so doing. You know, the initial risk review to do a RAVDA, you could charge $250 for. You get the report, you sit with your client and identify some project groups, perhaps a planning meeting, and then you table the external CFO role, the service document, the service package that you've created. And that's how firms are evolving out of an initial financial review, looking at the risk in the business, handing out BIZTOOLS materials. Now, the next piece is then getting a working knowledge of the scaling up methodology. This was developed initially by Vern Harnish, who's an ex-Harvard academic, but he developed a small business advisory group that now is global. And it's really, this could be the agenda for your planning meeting, your strategic planning meeting with your client. What do we want to look like in 3 to 5 years' time? Revenue, margins, cash flow, dividends, business value. My role as the owner, what parts of what I do could be handed over to the senior team members, and who's going to look after the various functional areas of possibly tendering, sales, marketing, staff development, stock control, debtors management, financial reporting, liaisoning commercially with landlords, IT suppliers. You can help your client allocate those responsibilities to senior members of their team or outside outsourced specialists. So what do we want to look like? What is the purpose of our business that allows people to relate to us and feel that they're in the right place? What's the focus in terms of outcomes for team members? Is it career development and training? For shareholders, a certain return? For our suppliers? For our community? What are we trying to achieve? What are the core values that govern acceptable behavior or sackable behavior? And having really looked at this particular tribe, this group, why are we doing what we're doing? What have we got to do now to improve it? What are the 2 or 3 things we got to nail? Strategic initiatives, a flash management term for simple projects to improve. Drop days debtors from 60 to 45 and free up that cash. That could be a project. Who's responsible? What meetings will we have? Are we going to have daily stand-up meetings with our direct sales reports? Are we going to have weekly job or sales meetings with those teams? Are we going to have a monthly review of the project groups and the progress they've made? A monthly financial review? Are we going to have a quarterly formal board meeting with an external member? The project groups should be asked to report to a monthly operational meeting that makes sure that they implement and do things. So the boss then needs to ask, how am I going to spend my time each week to drive this? So there's a framework for having a discussion. Part of it would be tabling a budget, which is the financial plan for the next 12 months, broken back into months and quarters. So if you run a planning meeting, you can play the role of documenting the actions that are needed, establishing the project groups, and then the pattern of meetings where people are going to report to you. You help your client do this. You're creating focus in the business. Everyone's looking at the important things. You're trying to get your client to delegate and let go some of their areas and involve their team more. So the scaling up methodology is about engaging people, empowering them, spreading the responsibilities out, and working as a team and reviewing it together. Too many small business owner operators don't share any of this with their team members. They just treat staff as employees who are trying to rip them off, and hence there is no trust, and consequently the businesses don't innovate and they don't change with the times. And so in today's high change climate, where technology is having a vast influence, plus things like COVID and other societal changes, we've got to get our businesses pulsing in terms of plans and reviews. And business advisory work is you being the facilitator and the enthusiast and the assistant note taker and action lister for your client. That way you deliver value. So, as we've said, run a planning meeting, establish project groups, document the actions, and review them monthly. That involvement will add value. Hand out the various lists of how to do things that are included in the ESS Biz Tools IP. As Peter runs webinars, suggest your clients attend. I would attend with them if possible. I also I read management books. I've just read a little one that, it took 2 hours about motivational leadership. I've sent it to 3 of my clients, and at our next meeting, I'm going to ask them to tell me what they got from reading the book. So I share educational material with the senior leadership group, and then I ask them at the next meeting to tell me what they got from it. They've now learnt that they need to read it and have something to say, because I'm going to bloody ask them. And again, that's business advisory work. You can't do it alone. You need to establish a senior management team in your own accounting firm and apply the scaling up methodology to it. Involve your senior leadership group and get them running compliance so you're freed up to do business advisory work. So the best place to start becoming a business advisor is in your own accounting business. If you are a sole practitioner with no one to help you, well, perhaps it's time you employed someone and started and involved them, and away you go. So we've talked about the scaling up methodology. Apply it to your own practice. It's a great place to learn, and then you can select a receptive client who you feel needs this and go through the process with them. Buy Vern Harnish's book called Scaling Up and read it. It'll be an eye-opener for you. So what are the 3 most important things you've got to do to improve your accounting business? What are the 3 most important things your clients got to do to improve their business? Establish some project groups, list the actions, and review them. That's a simple way to start. And some of the cash flow areas, such as debtors management or stock management, are great places to start, and you can hand out the ESS materials to back up that discussion and engagement with your client. Now, to make project groups work, as I've said, create a list of actions, put beside it who's responsible, how much time and when are they going to look at it each week, what are we trying to achieve, what are we going to measure. Now, in creating a list like this, put it in a spreadsheet, you know how to do those things. We change, as they're done, we change them from black to red. And when we meet next time, we don't delete what we've achieved, we just change more black items to red. It becomes quite motivational because you can see the progress you're making. Also, if someone hasn't done it, it is fairly evident. Hence, you can have those discussions. You become the morals officer for your client, going, well, why have we not done these things? Should you not be part of this project group if you can't discipline yourself and allocate time and make sure you do it? And you've got to have some of those hard conversations. Attack the issue, not the person. Now, as I said earlier, once you've done a RAVDA, a risk review, you could then get a multiplier and apply it to profit and come up with a business value. And for those who are getting older and looking at selling their business or handing some over to the family, this is a great thing to do as a formal reporting item on an annual basis in a planning meeting. Then you've got to think about how you're going to price these services. You can look at the time you've taken by your production costs, your hourly production rates, and come up with a time cost of production. Then you've got to think about what's the value of the outcome for the client, and can I put a margin on it and charge a value price? And as I said earlier, if you start by saying, let's create budgets and review them for 3 months, and then we'll review this and look at the relationship. If a client says to you, oh, $5,000, that's a bit much, you could go, well, here's a list of all the things I'm going to do. What don't you want on that list if you can't afford 5? What's in your budget? Only 3? Well, what don't you want on the list? Instead of it being an emotional interaction where you feel offended and insulted and then withdraw, you've got to prepare yourself before these meetings. I'm going to visit my client. We've looked at needs. I'm suggesting an external CFO role. We're going to do budgets and meetings for 3 months. Here's the price I'm asking. If they don't want to pay that, what on the list am I not going to do? And you prepare yourself before you go to the meeting so that you can remain calm, be confident about the value you deliver, and ask for the price that you think is fair to reward you for your involvement. So again, doing business advisory work requires getting an agreement with a client about their needs, what you're going to do to help them, what outcome it will achieve, what's the value of that, and how you wish to be paid. And you might want to separate the needs review meeting from the here's how I'm going to help you, the presentation of the solution meeting. So we've looked at what do your clients need, what do they want, and using the ESS Biz Tools needs review questionnaire that it has been refined and developed from a tool I developed 40 years ago and have been using for 40 years very successfully for my initial discussions with any client who asks me, can you help us? Then it's a communication process about what can we do to help you solve 1 or 2 projects. We've talked about getting your team involved and responsible for running the compliance production. And in that way, you can be freed up to do this type of work. So I hope that's been of some assistance for you. And Pete, I'll throw back to you, and maybe there's some questions. Otherwise, you might be able to show our participants some of the materials.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much, Andrew. That was a wonderful overview of the business advisory services story, really. This is a challenging area and a great area for accountants to be involved in. And there's the book Andrew was talking about, Scaling Up. And what Andrew didn't mention, but I like the historical side of this. Apparently 100 years ago, David Rockefeller, who was the key guy in making Standard Oil, probably the first lot of billionaires around the world, other than royal families, wrote out a series of management systems for the employees of Standard Oil, for his management team members, as I understand what happened. And that worked very well for Standard Oil, but things like computers and internets and videos and everything else come along. And that's when Vern Harnish decided to, in effect, rewrite Rockefeller's manuals, bring them into the current language, and of course, refer to things like the computers and spreadsheets and other things, which we've all now got.
Digital marketing. Yep.
Yeah. So it's an interesting story. It's not just something that Vern just went out and started writing. And
no, his first book was called The Rockefeller Habits, and then he's changed it to Scaling Up, which is really focused on dealing with high growth companies, how to structure your company to achieve high growth. And it's all about planning, communication, engagement, setting of actions and review, implementation and review. So it's all about a planning communication process. Scaling up and managing a business is about your communication skills. Doing business advisory work is helping people with just that.
And that's really what you and your co-directors and obviously the leadership team did in Green Cross, isn't it?
Well, that's right. We created a senior leadership group of 12, and the initial thing was to look at our direction. We said we want 250 veterinary practices. We're going to buy them. We want to be able to support them with better marketing, with better veterinary medicine, higher standards of care, better education. So the senior leadership group created project groups and various people were involved, and they drove and developed those specializations. And basically it was just, I invited Dr. Glenn Richards, who was the veterinarian who was the managing director, and our CFO to a Vern Harnish scaling up workshop probably 15, 20 years ago. I can't remember exactly, Peter, let's say 20. And those two guys just grabbed it and implemented it very, very well. So they did a fantastic job in scaling up that business.
So our accountants that are watching this today, or watching it at a time to suit them, you can do something. You mightn't create a new company that makes the top 200 ASX listing, but it's a journey you can share with your clients. And one of the tools, or a number of the tools that ESS have got, includes material around research and development and capital raising. And
yes,
if I can say so, I think that's got a bit easier than what it used to be. We've now got specialist companies like early stage innovation company and crowdsource funding, equity raising. And this journey, it mightn't end up with billions and billions in turnover, but it might end up a company that's currently sitting at $1 or $2 million, might be $10 or $12 million in 5 years' time, and have a great business and a great lifestyle. And perhaps you can still be the key financial advisor if you've grown with your clients. If you don't take up the challenge, though, some of these clients are going to grow beyond what they perceive the services you can offer to them.
Yes, that's right. So, visit clients, look at what they're doing, ask, be enthusiastic and inquisitive, and ask to be shown. I remember going into a smash repair business, and he said he had a new automated quoting system. I went, how does it work? And out he went and said there was a Toyota out the front with a ding in the front. He scanned it, and then up came a checklist, and they applied prices to it, and it was automated. It was fantastic. And I said to him, do you think I could do that? He said, yes. You just got to point the machine at the damage, and then we'll help you cost some of it out. But all of a sudden, I learnt about it, Peter, just through visiting and asking. So, doing business advisory work, you've got to get out of your office and into your clients' premises and look at what they're doing and how they're doing it, and getting involved with the project groups. You'll learn a great deal, and that allows you to specialize in certain industries.
That's right.
And that's all we did in the FMRC. We visited, observed, learnt, and then we ran a series of programs for the smash repair industry. Then it was the hardware industry. Then it was legal firms. Then it was accounting firms. And then it was architects, engineers, surveyors, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm just going to take the screen back, and I want to now move on to, I'll just give you an overview of the ESS Biz Tools website. We're having a promotion this month and in the month of August around our business advisory services programs, and we're starting with our starter package. But what we've got on the screen here in the left-hand column is a list of the various items that are contained within ESS Biz Tools. And if any of you are interested, please contact me and we can take you through more detail, because what I'm going to show you today is the Business Advisory Services Starter Package. This is part of every other package we have, which is basically gold and silver, but this will give you some idea. And Andrew is referring to this sort of material as we were going through there today. The Business Advisory Services training is included in each of our packages. There's 13 modules, because I think it's very important that the partner, the manager, whoever's going to be the driving force behind business advisory services, has spent some time with the team. And we have broken this down into a number of components. There's 13 of them. And if we want to visit the items.
I see there's the needs analysis, Pete.
Yes, I'm going to bring that up and
Good.
show everyone now. So we
keep
go on.
talking about it.
There's a video for each one of these modules. And here's the list which goes through. I've got a screen that's slipping here. Business advisory services, getting organized, team training, the use of the SME needs analysis, selection of products that your firm is going to offer, and that should be linked to who your clients are, what industries are they in, what problems have their industries got. Selling business advisory services. We do have to do some selling or marketing, communicating. Don't assume that your clients automatically know that you're now offering these sort of services. You have to show them, you have to illustrate to them that you understand what's all involved, and then we have a series of one-on-one meetings. But just to pick out one of these products, let's go to the SME needs analysis. As Andrew said there before, I'm very happy proud that this is a product package that's been originally developed by Andrew when he was at FMRC, and I'll just bring it up so you can see it. So you should now be able to see the SME needs analysis. We've expanded it a bit over the years, put some new things into the system, but it's a document that allows you to sit down and have a cup of coffee with a client and ask some questions. Some clients over the years, I've actually handed them this, people who I know will take it on board. And what you're trying to find out is what questions does it prompt the client to ask? I've had people say to me, explain to me what benchmarking means. And I immediately say, geez, no one's talked to them about benchmarking. Or what should my productivity be out of my team? And then that's when you can use the benchmarking reports that are produced by benchmarking.com. As Andrew just said, that was previously known as FMRC benchmarking. What about the ratio analysis? I've had people say to me, what about my key performance indicators? Are they right? And I said, well, hang on, they should be framed to suit your business. But please make sure that the person in the management team that has to use them understands them. I've had situations where I've come across supervisors that have got no idea what these reports called key performance indicators are all about. I said, what do you do with them? They pointed to the waste paper basket and that's where they went. So, and that was when I was the chief financial officer of a major meat company. I sat down with those foremen. This was the foreman in a huge meatworks. And I said, okay, let's go through. And we reworded. Didn't change it much, to be honest, but we reworded it. It became their words. They then had some ownership of their key performance indicators and they started to use them. I even got some, going back a bit, we even got some telex messages saying, look, we'd like to change this and we'd like to, why don't you add this? We really need to know that every day. And it was another component. So, and this is what Andrew's said a number of times today, and I completely agree. You've got to understand the industries. Business advisory services is far more complicated than preparing financial accounts and a tax return. Now, don't get upset when I say that, but it is, I think, because you need to dig into the industry. You need to have an understanding of how it all clicks and an understanding of the components. It's just not the final profit and loss account or the balance sheet. It's going into all those components. And please make sure that we have separate profit and loss accounts for each activity. That's real management accounting, in my opinion, not putting it all into one P&L. That doesn't tell anyone anything. You can send it like that to the tax office, but please break it down into its individual components so that the person who is managing a particular unit has their own P&L account, has their own key performance indicators. Then they can really manage because they got things to control. What about debtors management? What's the debtors days outstanding? I don't want to be too critical, but I ask a lot of accountants to chase up any client that's got debtors days outstanding in excess of 40 days. And I get some strange responses And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of accountants really understand what their clients' debtors days outstanding are. And my response to that, and I prepared tax returns and ran a tax return practice for many years. It's not a question in the tax form, is it?
No.
So people don't look at it, but please look at it, because that's an ideal job you can start off. Your first job in business advisory services could well be to review the debtors. We have a product on that. And the key component that tells you to have a look at their debtors is their debtors days outstanding. And the report released 12 months ago, analysing Australian debtors, says we're still sitting on 56 days. I had it yesterday for another webinar and I thought I'd got it out, but I just can't put my hand on it. 3.5 years ago, Australia was rated as having the longest debtors days outstanding in the world. And we won a very dubious award. It was judged in the United Kingdom, the worst in the world, because we were the longest. And that was at 56.4 days. 12 months ago, a further review was done and Australia is still sitting on 56 days. So even though the Prime Minister announced all sorts of changes within how federal government departments were going to pay SMEs, and some big companies acknowledged they were going to pay quicker, it really hasn't happened. In 3.5 years, we've had a 0.4 of a day decrease in the debtors days outstanding. So this sort of questionnaire in the SME needs analysis hopefully is getting clients to say to you, well, tell me what my debtors days outstanding is. A lot of them will not know. And you tell them that's 74 days. The next question or comment you should be making is, and this is what we could do to improve it, to get it down to, say, 40 or 45 days. There's depending on the amount of debtors, there's a lot of cash in that. Cash flow management. Do they need help on budgets and cash flows? I've included marketing in the survey we have these days because I think part of your role is to act as a project manager. And some of your clients do need marketing assistance. You know, marketing 30 or 40 years ago wasn't a very big subject in a lot of businesses, but it is now. And it takes in social media, of course, it takes in websites, and it takes in this whole communication, running videos, doing what we're doing now.
Peter, I've got a big manufacturing environmental engineering company. We've just got a government grant from the New South Wales government and engaged external digital marketing specialists and created a plan with, you know, the accountants have been involved, and we've gone, we don't have the skills to do it ourselves. So we found a company that could do it. And then we got a government grant to pay for half of it, and it's been done, and it will be the savior of this company.
Yeah, well, that's great. And but what I'm getting at is, I think our role in doing these sorts of jobs, for an accountant's role, is to bring your commercial nous into play and inform the clients these things, like Andrew's just talking about. And don't forget government grants. We get to grants in this list in a moment, but yep, grants are very important. There's millions of dollars available. And I'll just go back to there. So we should be back on the screen now. I've been human resources, because Fair Work Australia is a huge problem for a lot of SMEs. You mightn't be able to do much about it. And you mightn't be able to do much about it, but you can refer them to someone like Blackstone Business Company, who we've got their business group. Customers, competitors, and so on. Corporate governance. There's a whole range of questions that you can look at to determine services that you could supply to your clients. Now, that's the SME needs analysis. I just want to move on to give you an overview of the other material within this particular package that we were looking at. So I'll just go back to the starter package. We have some seminars. We've got 12 of them in this package that you can use. They're pre-prepared. The PowerPoint slides are prepared, and all of the material that you need, to including the papers, the presentation material. Seminars or webinars help you have a communication with your client. You might do them in groups. You might do retailers together. You might do tradies together. We have a complete library of papers within ESS Biz Tools. There's 343 papers available in this particular package, our starter package. And I'm just going to show you how that works. There's about 70 different categories of papers. So if you wanted to have a look at one of these sections to get an idea how it works, I'll just click onto it. So I've gone on to operating a successful business. And I'm going to pick another paper that we also based on something that Andrew Geddes wrote many years ago, and that's called Characteristics of a Well-Run Business. So we've listed, we always have a synopsis at the beginning, a précis of what's included, and we'll just call up the paper. And I just need to new share. So you should now be able to see the paper, Characteristics of a Well-Run Business. There's 20 characteristics here. Andrew, I think when you first wrote this, you had about 10 or 12 characteristics. We've added a few over time.
Yes.
But we've got variations of this. We've got characteristics of a well-run tradie business, a retail business, a manufacturing business. It's a great talking point with your client. Give it to the client, ask them to read it, and have a discussion with them a few days later. And invariably, it'll come back to you when the client sits down for a cup of coffee, covered in notes, because they've looked at things, they've looked at their team, and you can link it to a whole range of other material. That's what these links are there for. But it's just trying to explain in fairly simple language what a client should be looking at, where they can start on their business. And what all this is aiming to do is introduce to them the concept that you can offer these real commercial services, which today we call business advisory services. So hopefully that gives you that overview of when I say we got 343 papers in our system. They cover a wide range of subjects. That what you do is you brand them. On the top of each page, you can insert your name and your address, your firm name, obviously, and you can send them to clients. If you want to, you can charge your clients for them, but we're not a franchise, so you don't have to pay ESS any more money if you do that. We have some mentoring and coaching material to help you communicate with clients. So you send them a series of emails, which include some articles. It gives them a feeling that you understand what you're doing, because I think one of the real challenges is to convince clients that at university you learn a lot more than preparing annual accounts and tax returns, and that you can deliver that. And we believe these services will help. We produce a monthly newsletter. I will go there and show you that. We produce debtors management, and we produce industry-specific material, which is built around tradies, how tradies set their charge out rates, and how professional services firms set their charge out rates, and how retailers can set their product mixes, going back to another concept that I originally heard from FMRC many years ago, was analyzing the stock. We've got stars, we've got cash cows, and we got dogs, and we got problem lines. You can't run your whole business around stars, unfortunately. So you need to be able to look at that mixture, because they've all got different markups and what's going to generate the profit. Now, if you were working full time as an accountant or a CFO for a client, you'd be looking at these things. I think that's one of the services you can be offering your client. This is our newsletter.
Peter, excuse me briefly. It's 12:58. at 1
Yep.
o'clock, I've got another teleconference. I'm going to have to excuse myself and leave. So
okay, I'm just
if
going to
there's any
check if there's
questions,
questions.
let me know and I'll come back to you.
Okay, so I can't see any questions that have come through. If
Okay.
anyone has any, can you please send them through, and we'll send them through to you later in the next few days, Andrew, any we get through.
Sure. Thanks,
Thank you
Pete.
very much for your time today. I'm sure everyone has
A pleasure.
got a great deal of information out of what you had to say.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks,
See
Andrew.
you all. Bye now.
Thank you. And we'll be wrapping up shortly. I just want to finish on this note. This is our newsletter for June. The July newsletter will be uploaded to our website on Friday. What our subscribers do is rebadge it with their name and logo and send it to their clients. What's it all about? The newsletter, as I see it, is a marketing tool for you as a subscriber, if you become one of our subscribers, because it's really showing your clients that you've got an interest in matters other than taxation. You won't find much taxation discussed in this newsletter. But from the client's point of view, it's meant to be an educational tool, telling them about things that they might not know. This one here talks about what Section 708 of the Corporations Act is all about, how much money they can raise as capital, early stage innovation companies, crowdsource funding, charge out rate calculations for your tradie businesses. We have a subscriber who's got over 100 tradie businesses. He uses our tradie manufacturing product to set the charge out rates every year. And then he said to them, we need to measure this each month to see how it's going, how the productivities are going and all the team members. And we need to have a business review meeting. And he charges them about $5,000 extra over and above what he was charging for the annual accounts and the tax return. So he's got over 100 of these firms. That's $500,000 in extra fees. I think tradies are a great way to kick off your entry into business advisory services. And I spoke to someone yesterday who told me he was only a very small practitioner, but he had 10 tradies. I said, well, okay, there's a potential of $50,000 extra in fees to really get you started. So that's the overview of ESS Biz Tools. I just want to leave you with a special offer that we have. We've got a big promotion this month. We have a 50% discount off this product that I've been showing you, which is our starter package. So the upfront discount price for it is $999, and you can subscribe to it and then utilize it to, and I'm just going to quickly go through the PowerPoints I had ready, just in case we run out of things to say. And so just bear with me a moment if I can, please. And because we've talked about all these things. So we got the 50% discount sale. It ends at the end of July. That's giving you 12 months upfront subscription, 24/7, or it's $197 per month for 12 months. You can learn more by going to our website, www.esssbiztools.com.au. We have another webinar in this series this Friday. If you want to learn about predictive accounting, you heard Andrew and I talking about Paul Barnaby and Plan Guru. That's on this Friday. Please go to our website to register. And next week's webinar, we're running a webinar like this every week, is on debtors management. And it's on Tuesday, the 13th of July, where we're going to explain to you and show you the debtors management system, which we have developed to assist accountants to be able to offer these types of services to your clients. And you can register for the webinars, as I've already told you, on ESS Biz Tools. If you want more information, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me on 1-800-232-088. Thank you very much for being with us today. We have gone slightly over the 1 hour, but I hope you found the comments by Andrew Geddes inspiring, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Goodbye.